Excuse me, attention everybody, the February 4th, 2020 Board of Appeals meeting will now come to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Wooten?
Present.
Mr. Crowitz? Present. Mr. McElroy?
Present.
Mr. Wood absent?
Yes.
Mr. Gisono?
Present.
Mrs. Curley?
Present.
Mr. Callen?
Present.
Mr. Cole?
Present. Seeing there were a quorum, we will continue. First order of business will be a motion to accept the minutes of the January 21st, 2020.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Callen, second by Ms. Curley. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? So tonight, what we were going to do tonight was have a discussion on the zoning board fees with the Special Service Director, Michael Donovan, who cannot make it. So we are going to continue that discussion to February 18th. So if I know you've had a chance to look over our current rates and whatnot. If you have any questions, hopefully we'll discuss them with Mike in 2 weeks. So we're going to move on from that. So first case tonight is case number 9917-6567 Broad Street. Petitioners Paul Queenie and Rose Gould. An administrative appeal of finding in inspectional services letter dated October 18th, 2019 regarding 6567 Broad Street. Case number 9635. That was the original case. So we have a letter here from Mr. Lamanna. Basically, and I can tell you I have been in contact with Mr. Lamanna on more than one occasion since the last meeting on this one. Please be advised that the City Solicitor's Office and Inspectional Services are currently reviewing the file regarding 6567 Broad Street to determine whether all conditions of the variance approved on December 4, 2012 have been complied with by the property owner. Due to unforeseen circumstances beyond anyone's control, the Law Department and Inspectional Services were unable to complete the review of the file and conduct on-site inspection of the property prior to this evening's meeting. It is the opinion of the Law Department that this matter be continued until the next meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals, so the Law Department may properly advise the Board as to possible legal avenues to be undertaken in order to ensure compliance with any conditions that have been violated. Should you have any further questions regarding this matter, please do not hesitate to contact this office. So it's the recommendation of the Law Office that we continue this and hold it over for 2 more weeks. There's one thing that has to take place, though. The petition is, at this point, where cases have to be heard and decided on within 100 days. This is going to take us past 100 days.
Yes.
So what we need here is a signature from Mr. Queenie and Ms. Gould, basically allowing this to continue for 2 more weeks. A release.
Well, I think we've already given an extension of 28 days, so you might still be within the 100 days.
I'm just going on what my clerk is telling me.
Put today's date on it.
Yeah.
You locked in today's
Yeah.
date.
Well, I'd be just curious, just to kind of we could give a briefing of what's happened, since the 28 days. Since
Yeah,
the last
I'm not
time.
going to get into the specific of the case because we're not going to hear it. Unless you don't want to sign that, then we'll hear the whole case today.
No,
But I will tell you that we have taken your correspondence. In fact, I've received more than one of them, and have asked the City Solicitor's Office for an opinion on a couple of the issues. And we also, again, I'm not going to read them, but we've received letters from a city councilor involving this case. And I also recently, as like half an hour ago, received a response from the actual property owner, who was not on the original mailing list, so she really didn't know anything that was going on, that we were talking about her piece of property. So we do have that, and I'm going to have that disseminated to the board for next meeting as well. So I would say hook or by crook, in 2 weeks we will make a decision on this case. That's if you want to. That's if you're willing to continue the case.
There were 2 questions in particular that I remember the board said they were going to ask the solicitor's office. One was, does the ZBA have the authority to rescind the variance? I was curious if you've heard an answer to that question.
No, no, in fact, one of the lines in the letter that I read was to advise the board of possible legal avenues, and that's what I requested. And so that's what we'll be getting from him.
Okay, so they haven't told you the answer to that question,
No.
whether or not you have the authority to rescind. And did they tell you if you had authority to overrule the ISD letter of October 2019?
Well, we're not overruling that, remember? Our issue, your issue was, are we satisfied with the conditions of the completion of the project? And I remember specifically, you guys were not really taking that much exception to ISD letter. It was more, how do we feel about the situation?
Sure, I was just curious, as a matter of principle, if this board was aware that they have that authority.
Well, that's why it's here.
Okay, very good. So that's the answer to my question.
Yeah.
That's good, thank you.
So-
And you've had communication with the owner?
I have no, we
65 to 60.
received a letter. I have had no communication with her. We received a letter from her tonight explaining her situation.
So that's the first communication, okay. You think that some productive things will happen with the communication with the owner of 65 to 67, so that be a productive meeting? If we defer this meeting for 2 weeks, do you think there'll be some productive conversations in advance of that meeting to prepare the owner for this?
Yeah, we don't know.
We don't know, but at least we're trying to engage, because wouldn't it be better to get it resolved?
I agree, and that's why I'm asking some questions, because 28 days has been a long time. I had hoped that we'd be a little further along at this point. I understand unforeseen things happen, but I thought a lot more things were going to happen in the
Yeah.
previous
Well, every
28
time
days.
you write a memo, then we try to address it, so you,
Right.
right? And
Right.
we've received in a couple of cases just within the last 24, 48 hours,
Right.
so we're, you know,
And we
we're
do
doing
that.
the-
We do
we're
that
doing
out
the
of
best we can.
We do that out of respect and consideration to the board, rather than catch you by surprise. We try to prepare you what our questions might be.
So there's a motion to continue this. Are you willing to sign the extension, Mr. Queenie?
And do you think, based upon what you know about the case now, if you were in my shoes, do you think I'm in a better position now if we try to proceed with this case now and come to a resolution? Or do you think it's better to wait 2 weeks to resolve this?
Well, knowing you've put this much time into it, my feeling would be that we have to make sure that what we're doing, we've had legal standing to do it, because otherwise, who's to say that you could appeal our decision and then we didn't grant it, knowing full well that there were some questions that we didn't have answers to, so.
So does the
And
board
plus,
feel?
there's new stuff that's coming in.
Yeah,
So
Okay.
we still have, no matter what, we kind of have to hear it.
Okay,
Unless
so
you don't want us.
so is the board telling me that?
I'm not telling you
No, I'm
anything.
asking you a question. I'm asking you a question, if I may. Is that all right?
Well, the case isn't open, is it?
I'm curious to know if the board believes they can render a more satisfactory and appropriate decision 2 weeks from now than now.
We don't know that.
But I'm hoping that,
But, you know, there's very few people park at signing them, I'll tell you right now.
Pardon me?
Very few people park at signing those releases.
Mhm.
So otherwise, we have to act on it tonight.
Okay. I'm not balking, I'm just trying to I understand this process.
I know, but we have to proceed with other cases here. I'm only saying.
You'd be smart to sign this.
it's up to
Well,
you.
I hold Mrs. Curley in high regard, and based upon what Mrs. Curley's recommendation, that I'll be happy to sign a 14-day extension to the whatever time limits are stipulated.
Yeah.
What's the date of that? February what?
18.
18?
So the intent is to hear this in 2 weeks?
Absolutely.
This is a snowstorm.
Yeah, we can have to do that. Well, thank you for taking the time to answer a few questions to help me make an informed decision with this. I appreciate that.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Motion made to continue. Second, roll call.
Can you put on this case?
Well, we didn't open it, did we? We did
No.
continue, and I wonder if I
So
have,
we do four?
I think we'll do 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Jussono,
Yes.
Mrs. Curley,
Yes.
Mr. Callen,
Yes, continue.
and Mr. Cole.
Yes. Okay, next case is case number 9918, 789, 795 Summer Street, to allow construction of 9 three-story townhouse units on lots in the R4 apartment house and R2 general residence districts with 20,558 square feet, 63.35 frontage, with less than the required side and rear yards and parking stall within 5 feet of the property line. Okay, so we'll open this for the petitioner. And I just have one question, Sam.
I just need that. Yes.
With the plans that we're gonna see here tonight, do you still need the required side and rear yard setbacks and the parking stall within 5 feet of the property line? Have you resolved any of those?
We have resolved the rear, and now the only parking that's within 5 feet is the one that's outside of
Because
the
we moved the
house.
building.
But,
And the side yard meets
The
requirements?
side yard is still required,
Is required,
yes.
And we reduced the number that from what you read.
right.
Way better.
Yeah.
Okay, you wanna make your presentation?
Well,
Or what do you wanna do?
I wanted to speak for 2 seconds. So, I know it's hard for you to believe that. I saw that smile. But I just wanted to refresh people's memory. We were here. This has been going, we had the snowstorms in December and we're back in January. At that time, there were concerns expressed by members of the board and there were some concerns expressed by a couple of the neighbors. And you gave us, and we thank you, the opportunity to address the concerns that you had and to address the concerns that we heard from the neighbors. So since then, what we've done is we've revised the plan, and Devin's going to describe how and what we did. And then we took it back to the neighbors who had concerns and showed it to them. And we think that, at least on this side of the table, we're on board, and we hope soon that all of you on that side of the table are on board. And just to quickly recap it, I think that there was a concern about the parking and where it was located. There was a concern about the number of buildings and units. There was a concern about the general landscaping. And then there were expressed concerns by others about proximity to their properties and others in terms of whether they had a view. So Devin and the developers sharpened their pencils, went back, and this is the new plan, and Devin would be pleased to present it to you and answer questions.
Mary, who's on this?
Can you come down this side so these folks can see?
Well, we'll start this.
Why don't we switch sides?
Floyd? Floyd.
So since we were here last, we took out that middle building as we talked
This is
about.
Devin. We need it for Mary.
Devin?
Devin, I'm with the architect at Chewing Company. We took out that middle building, and then we moved the parking from here in between the front building and the back buildings where that middle building was. We definitely took down the amount of parking, the visitor spots as well, back to 3, and also had to get rid of a couple because of that middle building. We didn't need as many. Back here, the setback to the rear staircase was about 3 feet, and now it has moved to 18, so we set it back quite a lot. And then every single one of the back units meets that 15-foot rear yard setback. And then as far as the height goes, we brought it
Mr. Chairman,
down.
can I just ask a quick
Sure.
question?
Go ahead.
Are you planning on keeping the fence in the backyard? I think in one of the rendering, I'm not sure if it was just on the rendering that you had it, or you're actually planning on putting the fence up.
Yeah, I mean, right now there's like a retaining wall, so
Right.
once we figure out engineering-wise what we need to do with that retaining
Yeah.
wall, we'll also speak to the neighbors in the rear to see what, what they want to do in terms of a fencing, but we would obviously want to secure some kind of privacy for the new owners and the police.
Especially if there's any sort of drop
Yeah,
they're gonna need a fence in the rear.
thanks.
And then there was a concern with the height. We brought it down to 35 feet, so it meets the height requirements, but the stories is still 3.5 stories. We brought it down to 3.5 feet, still has the pitch.
The peak of the roof.
Yep,
Is the site a true representation of what it will look like?
Yes.
Colors and the steel?
you guys like the colors?
That's what we're going, and so far from, you know, everyone that we showed the project to, all the butters, they were all, you know, no any concerns with the color and stuff.
Yeah, and then, back to the renderings. We did a couple renderings for you guys so you can see in real time what it would look like. This is a street view. So you come in here, front building, and then the rear buildings. These two buildings aren't stacked anymore because of the setbacks. It was just easier to pull those in. And then there's the back. I'll fix in with the, it's down a quite a bit lower than the.
Big tall shrubs are gonna be gone, those big tall trees.
No, ma'am, that was just for the rendering purposes. He took them out, but we are planning to, have, like, we want that privacy in the front, so we're.
Yeah, so where these are, probably arborvitae's or something.
Yeah,
taller.
we haven't chopped them off yet. It was just for rendering purposes to see.
And what about the ones down the side?
On which side?
When you drive in on the right-hand side?
I don't think, well, we're gonna be planting those right now.
No, they're there now, or they're gonna stay there.
I'm
So
sorry.
my concern is the people that live on the other side of that, this building is gonna be on top of them.
I'm sorry, which one?
Right now, those nice tall things,
On the side,
There's
left
new
side.
ones.
This
That's
side
the
right
one,
here? Yes, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about
No,
I'm
the other
this.
talking
side.
about that side right there.
I
When you
don't,
drive in on the right-hand side, that's what I'm talking about.
On the right side?
Right now, they're down the right-hand side and across the left-hand front.
You can't drive in on that.
She's talking about right now.
Oh,
I know.
oh, now.
Excuse me, I know right now, because the driver's on the right side, you're talking about the right bushes next to 787 Summer Street. Those right there.
I'm talking about when you drive in,
Yes,
right?
We're at, the question was, under today's conditions or when it was built?
No, under today's
yes, they're on the
conditions.
right. The new, once we do the landscaping, those can all be there. But the plan, the development, the driveway will be on the opposite side now. It's switching from where it currently is.
But that house, that's building, that's where those arborvitae's are right now.
Yes.
And they're gonna stay there. They're not coming down and be replanted, they're gonna stay there.
Okay, is that something that everyone, yeah.
That's what I wanna know.
which-
Because when I went down there the other day again,
When you first drive in on the right
staked out the
side, when they have
property,
Cool's house on the right
that
side,
Yeah, but
building is
there's-
on top
there's
of
these
them.
tall, yeah, they're
yeah,
there.
but I don't even think that's on our lawn. I think that's,
That might be on his property.
because there
Those
was,
might be on his property, so we
I'm
wouldn't
just
be able to touch
asking
them anyway.
because when you staked it out, that building is, the trees are here and the building is there.
Yeah, because the building's right on the property line, so.
Yeah, the
So
building's.
that's all I'm asking.
oh,
It's 3
I'm-
feet off of the
Yes.
property line. We could probably move it over another foot.
No, I think she's talking about the plantings, not the building.
Oh, yeah, the planting. Just
But
on the
this-
plot
but
plan.
where
The
it's
plantings may not be ours, is the
That-
answer.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is the building where it's staked out is right on top of those things, right there next to it.
That's the line. I think that's the property line.
So they're staying.
Is that a quarter of the
Right,
building?
because we don't own them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the answer is, I'm sorry.
Don't believe
I think they are staying. I believe that that's the other property owner's trees,
But the
so.
building that you have staked out is right there on top of them, am I correct?
The building is gonna be 3 feet from the property line.
Away from that line, okay.
So the line that you see, it is gonna be 3 feet away from that line.
Because I think the stakes are the property line, they're not the building. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's
Even
the
though it's a
confusion.
corner?
Oh, what?
You know, you staked it out as a corner.
Oh, I didn't do
No,
that.
so whoever did, I'm just saying.
I haven't been by since they've staked
All
it.
right.
We
So
have
the trees are
plantings.
staying apparently.
I hope so, because I'm gonna check it out, make sure those are people.
But we don't have any control, we don't own them.
I know, and I'm happy you don't own them.
And the
We
people
have-
who are there apparently are happy where the building is, because I don't see them here, so.
Yeah, because these trees are gonna hide the building, that's why.
Well,
Yeah, we have some plantings in front of the parking on this way, plantings here on the other side of the visitors parking, so hopefully all the headlights, cars, everything will be blocked by plantings. Yeah, and then nice backyards for all of them. This one has some space as well, so.
And you know what the height of that one in the back right-hand corner?
The height of them, they're all 35.
They're all the same, they're all lowered? How
They're all,
much?
they were about 38 last time we were here. I lowered them by about 3 feet.
It's a lot.
Just messing with the pitch.
Yep.
so Devin is here to answer the questions about the plans. We welcome those questions. As I say, we took not only these plans for you, but to the persons who were here previously. And I think we submitted it when we sent you a set of these plans, their signatures of the folks who had seen them. We'd be glad to answer any other questions that any member has.
I'm
I
good.
think you did it.
You know, I have one more question about those arborvitaes. It just seems strange to me that across the left-hand front of that property that you own are the same arborvitaes, the same size as the ones going down the side. So it seems hard for me to believe that that man owns those and you own these when they're the same.
If you recall, these parcels got divided by the Board of Appeals and the Planning Board some years ago. And it's in 2 different districts, so it could have well been, it was under one owner at one point. It may be under different owners now, and the parcels may be divided, and you could be correct. And so all of those observations would come to the current situation, that there's a person who owns that property that's to the right, and there's a person that owns to the left, but we own sort of in the middle. And at one point, though, it was one parcel in 2 districts until it was divided by prior approval.
Any other questions?
Nope.
We're gonna, okay, thank you. I want to just stay here in case in case there are any additional questions. Is there anyone from the neighborhood, anyone else want to speak on this petition? Please come up and give your name and address to Mary.
My name is Jean Ledger, and I'm speaking on behalf of the piece of property that I own at 17 Stafford Street. It's been in my family for about 150 years. My issue is that it comes, I'm the only one affected as far as it being right back up to my piece of property. It's right here. Right here in the corner.
Yeah.
And the height of the building, this is just a little tiny cake, and I'm just afraid that I won't get any sun or anything. I'm the only one kind of affected. This property is very high with this wall, but my property is right here, very close to the back of my property.
Do you have questions?
Lloyd, go ahead.
Do you live there right now currently?
No, I don't live there. My brother lived there, and he just passed away a week ago.
Sorry.
So for the side, it's 7'6", and they're more than 10 feet
All
off.
in 10 feet?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping maybe you could eliminate that one. I know you eliminated one. I don't know where we could.
Well, the summer only affects you in the morning. You'll still get southern.
Yeah, is this covered?
Sunset.
Yeah.
That amount of
Yeah.
space
Yep.
on both?
Yes.
More than,
More than that.
more
More
than.
than enough?
I mean, that was something
They
that
actually
we
blew
had,
the building the height of the
Yeah, I know it was closer, and they made it.
Yeah, no, they did, they moved it quite a bit and they
Yeah.
dropped them as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah, no, they did quite a bit of work from
So
the last.
I'll be okay?
You should be,
Okay.
yeah. You got a pretty
no,
good.
thank you for coming
No.
down.
Yeah.
I mean, the things you're asking, we asked the same questions a month ago.
A month ago it wasn't like that, but this
Yeah.
month it is.
Yeah, I
So-
know. No, I tried to come to the other 2 meetings,
Yeah.
but one was a big snowstorm, and the other one was canceled for whatever. And then my brother passed away, so, yeah. Okay, so that was my question. Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have a question? Come on up. Please give your name, you were here before.
Right behind this building. I was in opposition before with the project, but we get started work with the new project and the fact that they put the distance, put the wall, and then it looks good, you know. The building is not that high, it's less, and I think it will work wonders with our neighborhood there. It's going to clean up a lot. And will be a nice addition to our neighborhood, you know, an improvement actually. And the thing is, why I came here to talk, because there are neighbors here, and I came to the conclusion that if they don't build something, somebody else might build something, and they might build something bigger, you know. So then we're going to have something, you know, that's possible, because this area is so large, and somebody else might invest in this. So I think we should take this project and be happy with it. You know, it's going to be a wonderful addition there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Cameron, did you have something you wanted to say?
Well, in the opposition.
Well, we're kind of just having it open. So at this point, if you go right ahead.
Okay, I'm opposed to this petition. And number one, it's overcrowding, and it's density, a lot of density. And it's a big project for that piece of land. The owners would like us to get rid of the dividing line between the two districts. There's two districts here. There's lot number 25 on the left is in an apartment house district, and lot number 18 on the right is in a two-family district. So years ago, the city council established that line between there. And I don't feel we have the right to extinguish that line. I feel those two lots should stay the same as what they are right now. And if this is allowed to go through, and it would be a model for anyone in the city, whether attorneys or builders or whatever, to do the same thing, to extinguish that line. It should not be extinguished, so that they could move the R4 district into the R2. That's wrong. The city council, when they first put these lines here, done it so it doesn't be that way. Now they want to invade. It's an invasion of R4, not R2. And to me, that should not happen. It's not in the best interest of the city of Lynn. We're here to protect the zoning map and the zoning. When we have 95,000 people that we represent, and I think we should definitely deny this petition.
Mr. Vagelli, did you have any comments on the R4 or the R2 issue?
Well, the zoning ordinance specifically foresaw that when they had district lines, that there might be properties in more than one district. It says in sections 3.3 that where a district boundary line divides a lot in single or joint ownership at the time such boundary line is established, or a use authorized on the less restricted portion may be extended into the more restricted portion, but no event except by decision of the Board of Appeals. And that's one of the reasons why we're here. I think the petition says that we're in two districts, and the relief you get is to come to the Board of Appeals, and we told you that it was in two districts, and it isn't establishing a precedent. If you brought the zone map here now, I could show you many properties that are in two districts. Because the zone map, You understand, the city of Lynn existed long before there was a zone map. And the zone map came in 1925. It's been changed probably hundreds of times. It's been changed as recently as this past month. But the properties are where they are. So when they changed the lines, the people that crafted this foresaw that could be a problem, and they couldn't leave it as a problem, and they vested in you, not the city council. They vested in you the authority to make that determination, and that's why we came here in the first place, because it is the line, it says here, except as, but in no event except by the decision of the Board of Appeals. So it's a case-by-case basis. It's a decision for you, and I think I gave a history maybe 2 meetings ago how it was the city that relocated the line. And you see this in your experience. There are many properties that come in here that looks like it's a residential use and it's in a business district. And if you look at, there are many
Next
business...
case. Well,
Yeah.
voting.
The dentist's office.
Yeah. So part of it was that they foresaw this could be a problem because they knew that the zoning map's dynamic, it changes. And they knew that the housing stock and the uses that were established are there. And if people continued those uses, they shouldn't be deprived. Or if they had a piece of land that fell into 2 districts, and just think, follow it out to its logic. Are you saying we should put in the 2-family side a small house that goes up 2 stories and you can't change your mind in it? And then on the R4 side, so they had the foresight when they drafted this to provide a remedy. And then the question in terms of the remedy, and that's what I said to you, that when we talked about height, that in an R4 district, you can be 5 stories high, okay? In an R2 district, you can be 35. So we conformed to the R2 requirements, but we could have said, well, but the R4 district is the less restrictive, and we should get the benefit. But what we tried to do is to serve what we think the objectives were, which is to reach a good outcome, and we brought it to you, we received your input, but at the outset, the requested relief reflects the fact that it is in 2 districts.
Yeah. And Mr. Callen's point was the majority of the townhouses are in the R2 district and not the R4 district.
But that's why it says the more
Oh, I know, yeah.
and the less. That's why it has that.
Mr. Stono.
But the case you put in your packet, for the reason for that was something from 1982. And when I looked that up, they just wanted to relocate the line. You want to dissolve it.
No, the same person now owns all of it, okay? And the fact is, it's one piece of property in 2 districts. So how do you, if I own that entire piece, I have to pick and choose. And so we wanted to take advantage of what the people who created the zoning map and ordinance said, which was that in this circumstance, when you confronted with one piece of land in 2 districts, and I pointed out that's why this parcel is somewhat unique in that area, because it's in 2 districts. But you do have the benefit of what the zone ordinance provided. And then the question is, how do you best utilize that? We went to neighborhood meetings, we met with our ward counselor, we got your input, we met with the neighbors, and we tried to come up with a plan that would allow an optimum use of the land, provide the city with added tax revenue from real estate dollars, provide people with added housing, which is a crying need in the city.
It's a crying need for people who have low income for housing.
Well, you can find people who would dispute you about that. Work, fair housing, affordable housing, those are labels, okay? There are 52% of the population of the city of Lynn renters. Every week I read a story that says the biggest demand, I saw there was a study with all the state representatives, is how to get more housing into Lynn. You can't make the city borders any bigger. You can't make some of these neighborhoods any bigger. That's why they're building a 10-story building down the street. They got to go up, okay? I bet there were people here who never thought they would see a 10-story building in downtown Lynn, all right? But the reality is you're working in what is a confined space with a growing population that needs housing. And you're working with a city that needs revenue. And the way the city gets its revenue is from real estate taxes. And there are only two choices they have on real estate taxes, residential or commercial. That's where they get their tax revenue. So this is residential, which is obviously less intensive than would be a commercial use. And in terms of making the best use of the land because it fell in two districts. But oftentimes the cases you hear are people who are in the R4 district, but they don't meet 15,000 square feet. So you have to decide. So what we're asking you to decide is that in terms of a lot that's unique, that's in two districts, and to think about what the other alternatives are. I mean, how do you put a two-family on one side and an R4? I think I told you at the outset, when I originally saw a plan, and we showed it to the ward councilor, it was a brick 3-story building. And he said, I don't want a brick 3-story building. And that was using the land on the R4 side. So it was a narrow, long building, 3 stories. So if you're left to what you can do by right, and you got more than, we have more than 15,000 square feet of land, and we would have to do a plan that would require a building to be 3 stories and put parking adjoining.
How many square feet is on the 25 lot?
Excuse me?
The 20, I get the assessor's map here. Lot 25, how many square feet?
Well, I'd have to look, but I can tell you the total of the land that's owned in the one owner is 20,000 plus. 20,558.
I'm talking about 25, lot number 25. That's the pork chop lot that's in.
Yeah, but that was the one that Mrs. Curley's pointing out, that the line got relocated.
The line was never extinguished between the
It was
line-
relocated by the board.
No, they can't do that. The line that the city council put in that area divides the two jurisdictions.
Now, the line hasn't moved. The zoning, we're talking two different things. The zone map has not changed,
That's right.
but the lot lines did change with approval of the planning board and the Board of Appeals in the past. So that's who changed the line of the property, not the zone district, the property
I
line.
get a plan here from the assessor's office.
I have the assessor's plan. What I'm trying to...
It shows the dividing line go from Summer Street to the back of the people's property on Echo.
You see this L-shaped lot? Okay, you see this crazy shape? That got created by the planning board and the Board of Appeals. They created this lot, this lot shape. So we're talking two different things. The zone map line is the zone map line. The property line got changed by the city.
I'm talking about the dividing line that separates the two, the R4 from the R2.
That resulted from approval by the planning board and the Board of Appeals to relocate the property line.
Well, the petitioner wants us to get rid of that line.
No.
To extinguish it.
No, that's not true.
It's got to be extinguished because you can't move R4 to R2.
First of all, you can, and secondly, the line never gets extinguished unless they change the zone map. The zone map is under the control of the planning board and the city council. That line is not changing.
Can I ask a question, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman?
Go ahead.
You know, I think this is a pure case of, case-by-case basis. Everything needs to be looked at on a case-by-case basis and not in a blanket thing. Here's a petitioner who came in last month with a plan that we sent out the door pretty quickly because it was just completely, and it had a lot of heavy opposition from the neighborhood. I think they went back. I think they made great leaps forward to doing what we asked them to do. And it looks to me like they eliminated a lot of the opposition in the neighborhood that was around them and actually turned some people that were in opposition around and then speaking in favor highly of it. So I agree with what you said that, you know what, a lot of people could come in and not care a lot about what they were going to do down in that neighborhood. And it seems like these guys over here have a lot of interest in what they're doing and they really seem to care about what they're doing. And I think that speaks volumes for what I look for when I'm sitting on this side of the table. I can't speak for everybody on this side of the table, but I think they did what we asked them to go back and do. And that's just my opinion. So, I applaud you for that.
I'll just reiterate that at the last meeting, we did read a letter from the ward councilor John Walsh, that was actually, he was in favor of the nine units.
He was not in favor. I can tell you how we started out. We started out trying to do what Mr. Callen wants. And we came up with a plan. And I had Mr. Fayette do a parking plan. I had, it was a 3-story brick building that you've seen replicated many places. And it went sort of straight up and narrow. And then we would need to get permission to park, but parking is an accessory use. This was my reasoning. And so if I own the land and I have a principal use that's permitted on the land, which is an apartment house, then I can have an accessory use, which is parking for the apartment house. And so we had a plan that showed this tall 3-story brick building and parking over here on this side. The council didn't want that. He said, I don't want a cookie-cutter 3-story brick building. And then we asked him, what do you want? And it sort of evolved, as you said. And we went through meetings with him. We had a community meeting with the neighbors and him. We've had subsequent meetings. We showed him this other plan. But I can't change, you're right, I can't change the zone map line. Only the planning board and the city council can change the zone map line. Okay? The property line got changed. How else did this lot get configured to have this? Where all have you seen this shape with a kind of big L? And that was done when years ago when somebody came in and relocated not the district line, not the zone map line, but the property line. And so this is what you wound up with. You wound up with, and I marked it on here, you wound up with this big piece up here at R2, this piece at R4. And so what we looked at was, okay, can we put a big brick building up there and make it long and narrow and fit that lot? And understanding that each of these districts have requirements, whether it's frontage, lot size, area. And what we are trying to do and attempting to do was satisfy all of those concerns and use what the zone ordinance provided is the mechanism to do that. It didn't say you could just go do it. It said you had to do it. So no matter what proposal came in, it would have to get the Board of Appeals review because the district it hasn't changed. The district lines haven't changed. And they won't change until the city council were to make that decision. And typically when they do rezonings, they do what was called line to line. They change districts. But every once in a while you see something stick out and people in common parlance say it's spot zoning. Well, they're probably right. But this is a case of a lot that's in 2 districts.
That's fine. You can't move the R4 district into the R2 without eliminating that district line.
No, the district line doesn't change.
That's what I'm saying. You can't move that over that line.
Well, it's still part of one.
That's what the zone ordinance says, you can.
You can build in it.
No, you can't. Because you even say yourself, less restrictive to the more restrictive.
Well, I read you what the section is. It's 3.35.
Are there any other questions?
No, I'm good.
And it's a question of interpretation, but I think the reason that is in the zone ordinance is that they foresaw that over the years, the zone map may change. And they understood that property lines maintain. And so they had to have some remedy for those persons who did nothing, but the city changed the zone district. And now their land is in 2 districts. What are they to do? And so they said what they are to do is to go to the Board of Appeals.
Thank you. What's the wish of the board?
Motion to grant.
Motion been made to grant?
Grant, a second.
There's a second. Is there any stipulations? Is there anything that people are concerned about?
If you do own the
I have
arborvitaes,
one.
they stay.
On both
You
sides.
said the arborvitae stay.
If you own the arborvitaes, they stay. If you don't, it's out of your control. That'd be the only stipulation, right?
We want the arborvitae on the right-hand side of the property to stay.
Because I can just see cars going in there, lights shining in the windows of those people next door. And I've been on this board too long and had too many people sit out there and tell me, we're going to do it, we're going to do it. And then what happens? Everything is gone.
We'll make sure it's done.
Well,
It's gonna be part of the stipulations. One other question, are you fencing in the, I didn't quite catch the whole answer. What is the story with the fencing around this property? Are you fencing
Yes,
totally around the property?
absolutely.
So that, on that right-hand side where the cars are pulling in, if there's a high enough fence there, hopefully that will block any of the lights from
We
cars.
could also ask for screening, you know, that webbing.
Lattice.
I'm trying to think of the right
Yeah.
word.
Lattice.
Ladders
you're talking about fencing these with the arborvitae's or instead of?
No, we're gonna do both. What we've done in previous projects is we've done the fence, and then in front of the fence,
got
we
it,
planted
yeah.
trees, just to give a little bit more of a community feel, and then plus the privacy of both ends.
So I'm glad to
But
hear
again,
that
we're
it's
gonna-
gonna be fenced in.
The trees will help a lot too,
Yeah.
though. They'll
We
make-
want it, believe me, it's not like even, it's a good selling feature as well to have trees and landscaping.
You're going to have to prick your finger and sign in blood, let me tell you.
I'll do that for you.
And so hopefully that the fence will be in, particularly in the rear, whatever you put in there, respect that you would deal with the neighbors and come up with something so that it's a mutual agreement on what the fence looks like by your properties, all right? So there's a motion made
In a second.
and seconded. Hi, Floyd, please call the roll.
Mr. Jussono,
Yes.
Mr. Floyd,
Yes.
Mrs. Curley.
Yes, with stipulations.
Stipulations, keep the arborvitae's, stay to the right-hand side of the property, and also the fencing will be
Yeah.
leaving to it.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Callen,
No, denied.
Mr. Cole.
Yes, Grant. Mary, you want them to stamp this copy tonight?
Do you have to say that?
Sure.
Could someone come up here and stamp these plans that,
What's on the back?
oh, there it is right there.
No, I got- I'm
Someone's got to come up here.
We have super majority.
Thank you.
Somebody with authority.
Yeah.
So we have a super majority. It has to be.
Sir, can I?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, that's your.
What case number is this?
They have the right hand.
Case number
Thank you.
Which
Nine.
is civil, but are we all?
is that 9991?
Good luck.
Thank you so much. Should be majority, not. Should be majority. I've seen a lot. What do you know over there? A lot. Too bad.
Somebody want to
No,
call?
set, right?
We got a partner that wants to sign this?
You don't, it's a matter.
No, just somebody who's an authority on the project. Then you can sign it. I just want to, so if there's any issues down the road.
Sign.
Just below the red.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, this one.
Thank you very much.
In the back of the house is there.
Yes.
In the backyard, against the tree, there's a big statue.
Yeah, no, I've seen it. Sit down like that. That's one of the first, and if the no person goes first,
In the back of that big house, there's a big statue of yours and mother leaning against the tree. Leave it to you.
I've seen it like that in the way, but it's sad. Because it's, you know what I mean? I don't know if you change that, but I could. Right, I don't know about that one.
We ready?
Yep.
Okay, next case. Next case is 77 Broad Street. Petitioner Dr. Hubert Park by his attorney, Samuel Vitale, to permit alterations to a pre-existing non-conforming dentist office in the R5 apartment district to allow construction of a handicap access ramp and an addition with less than the required parking spaces and dimensions, finding that such alterations are not substantially or detrimental in effect on the neighborhood. Another continued case.
Correct. I'm Attorney Vitale. This is John Hyden, if you recall, is the architect. Dr. Park is here. Again, this has been a dentist's office since 1933. It was built for the dentist in 1933, who at that time lived there. It's been a dentist's office continuously since then. One of the dentists who was a principal retired after 40 years. Dr. Park has bought that practice. We explained to you the need for a handicap ramp because of the nature of his patients that he treats. There were concerns expressed by both the board and some neighbors, and so since then we attempted to address those concerns. John is here, who is the architect. He can tell you, I think, John, you ought to try to focus on how this plan is different than the original plan that was presented. So why don't you do that?
So the main concern we heard from the neighbors last time was concerns about how the property looked, and that it was too commercial looking, wasn't residential enough in comparison to the rest of the street and the neighborhood and the context. So just to show you a plan very quickly, and also we wanted to respond to the landscape question and to how exactly the property that was left would be landscaped with trees and bushes and hedges and so on. But let me begin just quickly with the front elevation. You may recall in the last iteration, I should have mentioned, we stayed afterwards, after the last meeting, had a very good conversation with the neighbors, collected their thoughts and ideas, discussed some ideas which were an attempt to compromise, mostly having to do with materials and design to try and make it look more residential in its nature. So you may recall that the ramp gave access to the property and was pretty visible. There was a rail which you could see, and we were trying to do something kind of fun there for Dr. Park with the idea of the bikes on the rail. Well, in an attempt to make it look more residential, we looked at the neighborhood, and there are some examples of some beautiful homes which have grand porches on the front. So we thought we would take that idea, and instead of simply having a canopy, we would try and create a porch, which actually has some really nice benefits. One is that we are now able to put this ramp entirely within that area that would be the porch, right? And it also gives us a chance to create in front of that ramp a low stone wall, which we think really dresses it up quite nicely. It's a very fine finish. It looks very normal in this sort of situation, plus it's durable. So we think it suits the purpose quite well. The posts then for this porch and the roof would then land on that stone wall. And in between the posts would be a rail, very much like it were a porch, but in this case it actually does a safety thing so that people don't fall off the ramp or fall through the wall and so on. And it makes the scale of it look more appropriate. And then lastly, the detail of the roof and the slope of the roof, again, is an attempt to try and make it look more porch-like, more residential, while still achieving the same thing, which is by giving a nice covered walkway, accessible walkway for those using the building. Something I didn't mention before, which I think I should have for sure, you'll notice that the entire existing building and the new is all clad in new clapboards. Yeah, so that's an attempt by Dr. Park to really improve the overall quality of the building, the overall look of the building. It does look a little tired, so this is an attempt to really make it look fresh and new, and to take the new part and make it more in sync with the old part. The neighbors also were kind enough to share a document which included several photographs. which were very similar to these that they were showing today, including of a stone wall, a type of railing, and simply a handicap ramp that would look more residential in nature. So we've responded to that. Take note, please, of this metal fence, which is something, you guys are probably quite can see this. But that's something which we also discussed in our meeting afterwards as something which we think would be really nice to have along this edge of their property. And we've put some thought into exactly what type of plants, and to be honest, Dr. Park, I don't think is terribly fussy about exactly what plants they are. In fact, that there are images of the arborvitae in the email that was sent, which would be fine. That would be taller. We also suggested perhaps a skip laurel hedge, which is a little bit lower. It could be kept, 4 feet-ish in height. Evergreen, so we think that would be appropriate, but we would be open to either one. The neighbors from the rear were also at the meeting with us after last time, and we talked about planting a couple of smaller trees on the back, but things that would be a little bit more pleasant to look at than the back of the building. So we picked serviceberry trees, which tend to look nice during different times of the season, but they have some color and some interest. So that was part of the thinking there. Lastly, we took out what was the bike rack, kind of part of that theme with the bikes, and have proposed planting there. We're showing inkberry here as well, which is a very hardy plant, which will probably survive quite well on the street edge. So overall, we also calculated that the open space that's not parking is about 18% of the site. We hope that this is a little bit more in the nature of what the neighbors and Dr. Park together were thinking. And we hope that you all find it better.
How much is softscape and how much is hardscape?
Yeah, so
What's the percent?
Yeah, 18% is soft.
Soft. What's the other percent? Hardscape.
That's a good question. So the building itself is 40%, so 58, so 42%.
0.2%,
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the other question is, I'm very concerned of the openness of the ramp. Very concerned, because and there are many ways. I do a little design work myself. I know that you can far more education on that than I do. And you can make that blend well by enclosing it entirely. That's what I think. I feel certain I trust in you to do that.
Yeah, we certainly could. I haven't discussed that concept with...
I'm afraid that will actually go back to look more commercial-like.
It might.
If you enclose the entire...
I think they tried to address the concerns that Mr. Callen has by that porch roof concept.
Right.
and also the wall. But understand that we're bound by, and I know Mr. Callen knows, but there are regulations that deal with a handicapped access ramp that we have to abide by with the Architectural Barriers Board in terms of the angle and the length. So we sort of start with, if you want to do one of these, you got to do it within those parameters.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then the rest was sort of like add-ons or takeoffs or whatever. But we thought that at least that way dealt with the elements coming in from above.
I believe also, technically speaking, if this were an enclosed space, it becomes building.
I know.
Which then would put us over 40%.
We can give you authority on that. But the minute you put a roof on it, it means it's a building. Right, Mr. Vitale? The roof.
I think that open porches, I think there's a section in the footnotes that talks about that open porches and eaves don't count with respect to the zoning and the setbacks. Okay? But the question is that somebody here made, once you enclose it, now you've lost that protection of that footnote.
Even if you put a roof on it.
No, there's a specific section that says, and it says, it uses the word eaves not spelled like it's a woman's name, but differently.
And you're not, it depends on what you're using it for too. This falls under the AIA, because it's a ramp.
Correct.
Yeah.
It
that's
can't be
right.
used as social space at all. It's functional space.
Yeah, that's true also. So you can't have like a party out on the porch.
No, it's you're gonna use it for one thing, like go walk in and out, or ramp in, or wheel in and out. It's not, it can't be used for anything else.
Where did you relocate the dumpster?
So that's a great question. So the dumpster is currently here and it will stay there. What we look carefully at the accessibility guidelines. A parking lot that is less than 15 spaces is not required to have a spot. However, in talking with Dr. Park, what we agreed, and actually how it works now, is if a van were to come, the accessible entry for most people in a van is actually right here at the back entry. So it's really convenient to come in, stop, open the door, the ramp goes down, and they enter the building at that point.
Is it ground level?
Correct. Yeah.
But Mrs. Curley's question was, how does that affect with the dumpsters?
It does not. It
dumpster
stays
goes in the back of the building.
it stays where it is. And actually, there's a bit more room for it because we're taking off that little weird appendage. In the
Yeah, it was like an appendix.
Would you put bike racks out there? I know Dr. Park is big on bikers and commuters. Is it a goal to at least add the bike racks back?
We could. We haven't looked at exactly.
Yeah, because remember last time you
probably
showed us
less,
where
but
most of the kids come from.
That's right.
They're on the bike, so
yeah,
it almost makes sense to have the bike rack somewhere.
yeah,
That's just, I can't request it, but
yeah.
Well, you could request.
It is certainly an interest and a lifelong love of Dr. Parks to incorporate that.
Yeah.
So I think we will.
We don't have a problem with one incorporate, that we have a bike rack.
Yeah.
It's also nice for a commercial building.
Yeah.
Now, a week ago Sunday, I sat across the street from this house, and I looked around, and now we have a lovely small house that was an owner-occupied dentist office.
No. Was not on
Yeah.
You didn't live there?
Apartment upstairs.
No. Before you, Dr. Floden and Dr. Roman didn't live there.
The building both decided it's welcome.
All right.
Yeah.
So forget about living there. It's still a small home that was a dentist office. And now we went from that to a corporation. Look at the size of these rooms. Look at all the rooms in there. I mean, it's massive. And you have not enough parking. You have not enough parking.
We have parking,
Yeah, you have some.
yes, and I asked for relief from parking, but I also said to you, we had made an arrangement. If you drove down the right of way, you would have seen signage all over the place.
I walked down the right of way.
Okay,
I
so you
didn't
saw
have
the
to
signage
drive.
about unauthorized persons parking. You saw the sign that Dr. Perlman had put up. You saw the sign that said 81 rear, those spaces aligned and marked. 81 rear and 80 were both dentist office. Recent times, they were both dentist office. But then the owners sold, and now 81 rear is a two-family dwelling. I talked to Mr. Fayer, who said there are at least 7 line spaces, at least 7. I talked to the doctor, who said we would take a stipulation that says no staff member can park at the property, because we have made an arrangement for off-site parking for staff. The doctor answered the question about staff.
What's the arrangement for off-site parking?
Excuse me?
What is the arrangement for off-site parking?
We have that lot that's next door, where there are at least 7 or 8. I was there today, there were 7 line spaces with cars in them.
Kind of like family doctors in Swampscott does. They park on the opposite side of the building,
Yeah. So what's a little odd about these lots is that right down the middle of this right-of-way is the property line. So traditionally, and I didn't even know that was a doctor's office, but it makes sense now.
80 and 81 rear were both dentist offices.
So this portion of the parking lot is the part that Dr. Park has spoken and actually has a written notice from to use their parking spaces during business hours only, so that their tenants can then use them during non-business hours.
And I sent Mr. Faya down, because I was a disbeliever, and I wanted to know how many spaces you could get there. And he called me up and said, go down and look, and I did. And he said, there's at least 7, maybe you could get 10. So, but that's not on the property. And so I suggested to Dr. Park that what we do is we would be willing to accept a stipulation that said no staff member can park at the property. Then it falls on us where they park. But I already know that we have a place for them to park. And I visited the site today, and I saw maybe 4 cars at the rear, and I saw cars parked on the adjoining property. And I researched the adjoining property, so I talked to Mr. Faya, and that's how I know. I asked the doctor, in fact, if he knew these dentists. There was one at 80, there was one at 81, and this goes to an observation that there aren't other doctors in the area, which there are. There's a rehab center at 102, there's a podiatrist at number 3. I knew it for professional offices for many lawyers, Mayor Kane, Kenny Roy, Bob Weber, all had their offices on Broad Street.
Yeah, but this is overkill to me. This is like taking just like I said, something that's small and lovely that fit in with the neighborhood.
We have a right to get a handicap ramp.
That's fine. I'm just saying the whole building. It does not fit in with the neighborhood as far as I'm concerned.
To build the handicap ramp.
Excuse me, I'm only one person on the board, and I'm telling you how I feel.
And I'm telling you the dilemma we have. To meet today's requirements, to have handicapped access, we have to have a certain specification for the ramp. The creators,
I don't care about the ramp. I care about the addition.
I'd be careful about caring about the ramp. None of us have a choice about the ramp.
I understand.
It's a state statute. It's in the zoning enabling act. It's specifically exempted, okay, from local regulations. 48 section 3. Well, to build it though, I can't build a ramp that goes this way. I have to have it extend, okay?
If I may respond just for a moment about how and why Dr. Park is doing this. Dr. Park, of course, talked very well last time about the type of clients that he serves, which are which are 57% local, if not more, but also younger children, but also some more difficult patients who
I
need
commend
it.
him for that.
Right.
I think that's
No,
wonderful.
no, of course, but there's a space need to accommodate that. In other words,
and to also keep them in certain areas.
If you had ever been in his existing office, which he makes the most of, but there's barely room for 2 people to pass in a corridor because of the narrowness, not to mention if a wheelchair access, which needs 32 inches by law at a minimum, and none of that really is achieved in this space. So, you know, in a good-natured way, he's trying to improve it. And we tried really hard to work within his existing footprint with the existing walls to make it better. But if you've ever tried to fix an old building and do that, it's very difficult, and it proved not to be possible. Only at that moment did we consider expanding to this side. The space was there, we're within the setbacks, but then you see the width of these corridors. Now they're wide enough for a couple people to pass, for wheelchairs, for kids who, kids are bouncing off the walls, right? And no one likes to, sorry, Dr. Park, no one likes to go to the dentist, right? So kids, we're trying to make the space feel as comfortable and warm and positive an experience as we can for these patients. And then last thing to take into account is that things have changed a lot so this was first a dentist in 1930, right? The technology and the apparatus and the stuff that he needs to do his job. I was talking to a friend today who saw this and said, gosh, look at that, an open bay I've never seen that. That's the best practice today, especially for kids who may not want to be in a room, may not want to be in a room alone with anybody, but a doctor without their mom or dad, right? So these spaces are designed, they might look big, but they're designed with purpose to accommodate what Dr. Park's trying to do in his
Well, you actually need all 5 treatment
I don't think
space. That is a lot.
I don't think they're going to see the bigness of it. I mean, it's a 1-story building.
If they could cut a portion of this side off and make that building
That's
next
what
to
I'm
the
saying.
new
Yeah, but
building.
you're not going to see it from the street.
Yes, you will.
You won't. Look at the elevation. There's no way you're gonna see it unless they go up higher.
What, especially.
That right there, you're gonna see how big the building is. There's no way. Unless they went two-story here, you could tell the height.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you have to cut,
You're just looking at
you
it
have to
from
take a
behind.
slice off of that right-hand side, and then I would vote for it. But as it stands now, I can't vote for that.
So my opinion on that, let's say we took back 5 feet, which would have such a minimal effect, to be very honest, on what you'd see in the front. But that 5 feet, in terms of what Dr. Park would be able to do in his practice, he may not bother to do it. It's that critical.
And does the ramp work if you take 5
It does
feet
not.
off the way?
No,
That's what I'm saying.
but it won't work that direction, but you can make it work.
Oh, yeah, you
Because
could, right.
this plan is exactly what we saw last time. Nothing has changed. You came back, well, the facade has changed, landscape has changed, but nothing else. We haven't exercised that yet. We haven't seen what else you can do with this, And I strongly feel like it's still bigger than what it should be, with the 5 treatment rooms.
Well, I mean, how would you know what a treatment flow would be? I mean,
Well,
none of us are healthcare
but
experts.
he's the architect.
I know, but this is the required
Yeah.
program.
So-
that you need.
Yeah.
I could tell you
Change the program.
that we've been
Living in a
working,
building and wanting the other one.
I can tell you that we've been working on this part of the plan
Yeah.
long before we came here, for 6 months, trying to get a way for it to work. And it never worked until we were able to go out to the setback line. And to be honest, because it is within or at the setback, we kind of felt okay with that, but on purpose kept it low, right? Kept it to 1 story, tried to minimize the impact on the neighborhood while trying to maximize what Dr. Park would be able to do.
Well, I'm interested in my city. And my city, in my mind, this building is too big. It's just setting a precedence for whatever else is going to happen. It doesn't conform to the neighborhood. And I think he's a great dentist. I love what he wants to do, but I want a slice taken off that, or I cannot vote for this.
But it
I'm
also
sorry.
is zoned for 5 stories.
I'm sorry?
It's also zoned for 5 stories.
Where are we on the ramp?
Are you okay with that?
How many?
No, I'm saying,
5
how
stories.
much do I
It's
need
in
for the
a-
ramp?
It's a high-rise district.
30 plus 5 plus 5.
What am I missing here?
So what is it now?
It's an R5
Yeah.
Right.
See, the ramp's gotta be 40 feet. It's 40 feet now.
It's,
How high you gonna
It's
go?
zoned for
it's
higher.
30
I
feet
know, but
length,
I'm not voting
plus a
for it.
landing.
I understand, but
So
they-
what's the
they-
grade
they-
change
footprint
you're looking
is
at?
go
30
up.
inches.
They don't need
30?
to come here.
Yeah. So,
It's as tight as a, whatever.
So we gotta meet that requirement
yeah,
to have the ramp.
it would have to turn, it would have to have a.
We're,
it would
we're,
have to be
act-
flat.
we're actually very lucky, to be honest, that it fits the way that it does.
Doesn't it, even in a change direction, you have to have the slat to change direction, and you still have to get space.
No, you could have the ramp alongside the upper bodies.
Oh, you wanna change where the ramp is?
Well, I'm saying, well, yes,
No, I
I talk
don't
to
think
the
they want
neighbors.
to see the ramp.
Well, the neighbors right
That's
there.
why they put it up.
So one of
The neighbors out
the,
here.
I don't have a problem with it, but I'm not voting on it,
Yeah.
so I mean.
The
One of
neighbors
the-
are here, they can
yeah.
speak on that design
That's why they
change.
wanted the ramp to move. They didn't want
Is
to-
there any neighborhood opposition?
Well,
Yes.
yes.
So if we have to keep the ramp,
Anybody else?
and we've got it
Yes.
enclosed, because of what we need to do, meet the architectural barriers requirements, then the only way, you can't slice this piece off because of the ramp.
So if you can have the ramp, but can you go this way then in the back?
Yes. You
Go.
can't.
Yeah, but the neighbors didn't want to see the ramp,
Well,
and
the
see the
neigh-
people coming in.
you have to allow them to
That's why
speak.
They wanted to move more to the left.
Yeah.
So if you put it
So-
on the side, they're always going to see
No, not on the
people.
If you have a
side.
ramp
I'm
that
just
goes
saying,
inside.
if the ramp has to go across the front.
So,
Can you
The only way you
slice
can
off
do
some of the,
something
make an angle in the back, so there's more green space, so it doesn't look like.
we
They
could,
don't come in.
we could,
Why not go up 2 stories, don't even come in?
You can do that too.
we could go up 2
Put
stories.
an elevator in.
Yeah, or the Lula elevator. They don't.
the one floor was
You know, the way that the,
Talk about some
something I would
opposition, the
never-
neighbors would be all up in arms when it goes up 3 stories.
there's a thought about moving the ramp, but if I may, the
Excuse me, one
intent,
second there. Go ahead.
the intent of the accessibility guidelines and having an accessible entry is that it is in order to use it, you wouldn't have to go any further to use that than you would the door, which is why this works incredibly well, because there's the existing entry here and right next to it. So a person has to go to one spot, whether they're able-bodied or not, and use either the stair or the ramp.
But you're doing exactly the same thing on the wheelchair on the opposite side of the building. Someone who's getting dropped off by a van is coming from the side of the building anyway.
It's too great.
Which is a grade.
Yeah,
It's a grade.
Right. See, what about if it was on this side, the opposite side? It's not a grade, but with the ramp. It's
True.
just the
Well,
opposite.
to be honest, the intent of the accessibility guidelines is at the main entry,
Yeah.
the one that is most easily found, right? People coming by van, actually, the reason why I think it works so well is that people driving the vans know exactly where to go because they come often.
You know, plus the other thing we gotta consider too is, if down the road he's so successful, he ends up selling the building, what's gonna go in there? Now it's been zoned.
It's not rezoned.
What kind of, use is gonna end up going in there
That's
afterwards?
my problem.
We're still in a district in which any business use is non-conforming. Any alteration to a non-conforming building requires Board of Appeals approval.
But once this is already there, they don't have to come before.
It is already there. That's why we're here.
Not this
Not
new
this,
lot.
yeah, not this.
It's not a business
Not
district.
Yeah.
That's what the non-conformity is.
Right.
Is
No,
the business
no.
use that's been there since 1933.
Yeah, but not this.
So what I would imagine is if Dr. Park moved or sold or died one day, looking at this property, I would assume a lawyer's office. I would assume an accountant's office. I would assume something that's a general
You know what
Oh,
business.
assume, the word assume
Yeah.
means.
Well, we're all just guessing. But
So, you know something,
another
we gotta,
dentist would be good. Go ahead.
we're sort of, now we're going in circles on this.
Spiral now.
We've got two issues, one is the handicap ramp and the size of the addition.
Yes.
And so I suggest that we're still gonna hear from everybody tonight, but you may wanna, when we're done here tonight, we may want, I don't know how the rest of the board feels. We may end up continuing it and give you one more shot at coming up with something that appeals us, but, I mean, I think I've heard enough tonight about the handicap ramp and the size of the building, so.
Yeah, you can get another variance with access board,
This may not be the A, but you can come up with a B plus or whatever,
Oh, God.
but we appreciate
Have
it.
another look.
Yeah. Anyone else want to speak in favor? Anyone else want to speak in favor at this point? All right, we'll close it. Anyone here in opposition?
I'm Paul Queenie from 71 Broad Street, my wife Rose Gould from 71 Broad Street, and our neighbors from 73 Broad Street, Rick and Ruth Suber, who you met 2 weeks ago, they were planning to come here, but this afternoon I got a call from Attorney Markopoulos, who told me this particular case was going to be continued.
as well.
So I told them, well, since it's going to be continued, you shouldn't come. So I think it's some bad information probably Mr. Markopoulos gave me by mistake, but because of that erroneous information, those two people who are in opposition and the wife is particularly opposed, they're not able to be here today to present. So I'm disappointed that I got some bad information and told them they didn't need to come.
Well, maybe you thought you were talking about 65, 67.
No, Mr. Markopoulos told me there was going to be an intent to continue both cases tonight. So he had.
Well, we may continue this case. That doesn't mean we're not going to hear it.
But had I known it was going to get this far, I wouldn't have told Mr. Suber, don't bother coming. I just want to let the record show that they would have been here. They intended to come here.
Fine.
And they were originally opposed. I'm just going to read this real quick so we make it, yes, we did talk, nice enough, we talked after the last meeting really quickly, but we haven't seen any of this or heard any of this until you guys heard it. So we haven't had a chance to really digest anything. But I want to hit some of the key facts and just make sure it's there for the record. And that may change with more information or more changes, but this is where we stand now. And also to get legal clarification for which we send it to the to have five.
Sorry.
Thank you. It's a long day. Let me just go.
In this current preliminary phase of design, we are presently vehemently opposed to the variance being granted, finding it to be substantially more detrimental than what currently exists. Our major concerns and summaries as follows. The proposed facility has the scale of a large, fully commercial dental clinic rather than the smaller owner-occupied home practices that have been operating in this neighborhood for years. While the owner has not yet indicated an intent to vastly increase the number of patients beyond the number he presently sees, a variance goes with the property, so this proposal must be evaluated in terms of what a facility of this size can potentially accommodate. Zoning of this neighborhood allows for professional practices. However, historically, these have been relatively small practices in owner-occupied buildings. The current preliminary design suggests the possibility of a much larger practice than ever existed in this neighborhood and is not owner-occupied, thereby not meeting the intention of the original zoning. 3, the proposed addition to the building exceeds the 25% cap stipulated in the zoning ordinance, section 13, subsection 13, period 15, period 1. 4, we oppose the proposed abandonment of the residential component of the mixed-use building. Presently, there are no commercial buildings in our local neighborhood of 77 Broad Street, and placing a fully commercial enterprise in this location will forever alter the character of this area and the neighborhood and set a precedent others can follow. We are fine with the mixed use as it currently stands. I won't speak to the green space because we haven't even had a chance to look over that plan, so it wouldn't be fair, but that was a major concern. 6, the expansion will increase on-street patient and employee parking in an already congested neighborhood. Early indications of the off-street parking that might be provided as part of this project fall far short of what was required in Lynn zoning ordinances. 7, there is a potential further increase in litter and gum being dropped. Already is mainly upon the neighbors who are picking up the trash and using a pressure washer to remove the gum. 8, the configuration and details indicated on the rendering provided with the request for variance will give the predominantly residential neighborhood a more commercial appearance. Note, no other professional, dental, or doctor offices are operating anymore in this close location of this neighborhood. And we talked about major obstructed views. This is for the legal aspect. We just want to put this for the record. We sent this to you, I think, a week and a half or some time ago. We are seeking ZBA findings on applicity of zoning ordinance 13.5.1. Does 13.5.1 apply to the variance being sought by the owners of 77 Broad Street?
And that variance requires, caps it at 25% of the building
And
space.
so
And this addition goes beyond
And
that.
we'll read that, and that might answer your question about the 5 stories or the thing. The City of Lynn zoning ordinance section 13 appeals subsection 13.5.1 alteration of non-conforming building indicates the following. This is reading from the actual zoning code. Permit the alteration of non-conforming buildings used for commercial industrial use by addition or additions thereto of the same class or a higher class of construction of the existing non-conforming building, provided that such additions or additions shall not exceed 25% of the floor area of the existing non-conforming building. Nor shall the maximum height of such alterations exceed the height of the existing non-conforming building, which means it can't go up to 5, even though we are in the 5, and we are about the highest it could go is 2, and it would still have to maintain that 25% by our interpretation. So alterations exceed the height of the existing non-conforming building, and further provided that such addition or additions are to be used for the same non-conforming purpose of the existing building and as part of the existing building, provided that the existing non-conforming use in any addition of the alteration shall conform to the present parking requirement of the City of Lynn zoning ordinances. God, they never put period in these. 2, ZBA's statement on whether or not the proposed addition to the dental practice would classify the first floor of 77 Broad Street as a clinic, defined by the City of Lynn zoning ordinance subsection 5.4.11. City of Lynn zoning ordinance section 5.4 business use subsection 5.4.11 clinic indicates the following, again quoting from directly. 4 or more doctors, dentists, or similar related occupations, that include hygienists, or entities, however, organized, whether conducted for profit or non-profit, whether or not it is advertised, announced, established, or maintained for the purpose of providing ambulatory, medical, surgical, dental, physical rehabilitation, or mental health services. The proposed, this is where our speak is, the proposed addition to 77 Broad Street increases the number of exam chairs from 7 to 14. The 14 exam chairs will be distributed as following: 2 open chair bays at 4 chairs each, 1 surgical suite and 1 chair each, and 5 treatment rooms with 1 chair each. We believe this configuration allows for a combination of 4 or more dentists or similar related occupations, thereby warranting classification of the expanded first floor of 77 Broad Street as a clinic. City of Lynn ordinances section 9, subsection 9.3, off-street park and facility requirements stipulates 4 parking spaces per treatment room, thereby requiring this proposed addition to have 20 parking spaces, 4 for each of the 5 treatment rooms. Number 3, CBA's rejection of the owner's request to abandon the long-standing residential component of mixed use of 77 Broad Street. Currently, 77 Broad Street is mixed use. The first floor is commercial and the second floor is residential. This came around in 1933 when a dentist's office living at 77 Broad Street requested permission to establish a dental practice on the first floor of his home. While the 1933 changes added a commercial use to the property, it preserved the residential use component. We believe that making 77 Broad Street fully commercial would adversely alter the long-standing character of the neighborhood as a mixed commercial residential area and set a precedent others can follow. And then in the event the ZBA accepts any portion of the owner's request for variance, we ask that CBA stipulate the first floor commercial use be restricted to either clinic or professional practice and prohibit any other commercial uses.
Okay, so let me answer one of you, and I don't know if Sam wants to chime in on anything else, but I will tell you this, that the, what you cite on the 25% rule is basically when someone's applying for a variance, applied to a variance being sought. On this one here, on this petition, Mr. Vitale is actually not requesting a variance. What he's requesting from us is to permit alterations to a pre-existing non-conforming dentist's office in the R5. But what he's requesting is no variance. He's requesting that we find that there's a finding from this board that such alterations are not substantially more detrimental in effect on the neighborhood. So it does not, that particular section does not apply to this case. It applies to, and I'll be glad to give you a copy of this. It applies to Chapter 48, Section 6, that basically says pre-existing non-conforming structures, by law, extensions or alterations shall not be substantially more detrimental. If we were to find that this is substantially more detrimental, he would then have to come back to us requesting various variances. But at this point, he's not requesting a variance. He's requesting a finding from us that this project is not more detrimental.
Okay. But isn't it also a requirement that somebody altering a non-conforming structure has to come to this board for a permission?
He's here.
Okay, but the 25% rule wouldn't apply?
Not on this.
Okay.
Not on this.
Okay.
And like I said, I'll have Mary send you the email, and as well as the Mass General laws.
Okay. Now, what about with respect to this being a clinic?
Well, there's a question from Mr. Park on, there may be 4 specialists. I don't know, but then it's not full-time. It's not.
May I speak?
You may.
All right. I'm a dentist, so I'm not going to know things that I don't know, which is why I brought other folks here as well. Last I spoke at our last meeting, our first meeting that I presented this case here, there were 4 dentists. Myself, full-time, which then, for me, that means working 4 days a week, Monday to Thursday, and covering for others as needed, as the owner of the practice. Michael Coyden, who was a dual specialist, retired as of last Thursday. He had his retirement party. I have 2 other associates, one is orthodontist, one is a pediatric dentist. Each spend combined no more 5 days per month, sometimes even fewer. So what I was trying to explain to
I mean, in hygienists.
Hygienists, we have 2, and some days 3. And
that's total 6.
And,
I'm the worst guy.
yeah.
Okay.
So, to respond to Curly's concerns about the why the size, and same with you. Why the size, I try to explain to you in the way that I see and I understand. We have one bathroom that does not fit really anyone. We have improper sterilization area in the sense of its configuration. Meaning our instruments that our patients need to use, many of them have many conditions, cannot be stored properly, and cannot be transported properly. So that's my practice need for needing the additional space. Why all the chairs? That's for a specific purpose that we have. The surgical suite that we have in the back is for those that are wheelchair bound, those that are combative, that may need certain procedures done in a larger space that's more comfortable and safer. I've done a lot of things since I became owner of the property and the practice to reduce the burden to the neighbors and reduce the burden to the environment. The practice used to be 8:30 to 5:30 every single day of the week, Monday to Friday, and 8 to 2 every Saturday. That's solid 50-hour week on a given week, 2 doctors full time. We had a tenant upstairs, other tenants upstairs too, and what I'm trying to do is we have a neighborhood that's mixed. We have residential, we have commercial, etc. Most of the litter that they're bringing up, I'm not bringing out alcohol nips or gum. Nobody from the dentist's office walks out of the dentist's office chewing gum.
I hope not.
But they walk in and chew gum.
So, what I'm trying to do is clean up the neighborhood as much as I can, given my, authority of my property, but I can't, survey the area and try to figure out what's going on there. What I'm trying to do is to make the area look better. Rose found an uncapped needle in front of my driveway. Is that coming from my office? No. Is it coming from my neighbors? Perhaps. Is it coming from people that are loitering in front of our stairs? Not them. Quite likely. I mean, I'm just short of one surveillance camera that's overviewing in front of my property to see who's doing all these things. What I'm trying to do is so that it's not a loitering ground where my patients are endangered. And I would love to save money. I'll put it this way. I would love to save money by creating a smaller space. And John Harden, who's working with me, my architect, is my 10th architect. I've had contractors that told me to leave the building because it's not suited for dental practice. So I'm trying to make that within my budget and make sure it makes sense. To speak briefly on dentistry, if you look around the town of Lynn, and especially around Market Street and other places, majority of dental practices are going corporate. So when I hear the word commercial enterprise, I get this visceral feel. I do not want that. Am I going to build this up and sell to a large corporation to cash out and retire at age 40? No. What I'm trying to create here is a place I can take care of my patients that come from near and far and make sure this place stands as what it is, taking care of patients. I can speak on that confidently because I'm a dentist. And if you have any concerns of why the vision, why the intent, why the space, why the flow, and how the flow, I'm happy to answer that here. And I'll be happy to meet with the outside if that's what's required. But I cannot answer some of the other questions that are more technical. So if you have any questions while I'm here, I'll be happy to address it right away.
Any questions?
Well, I just feel what you're doing, I think, is a wonderful thing.
Sure.
But this board isn't here to accommodate your needs.
I understand that.
It's here for what's the right thing for the city.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like that's what you're asking us to do. Because you need the sterling, you need new restrooms,
okay.
That's what she's getting at. But, John, maybe you can help us.
Yes.
Because I'm struggling because I'm seeing exactly the same thing I saw last time I was there.
Okay.
I live nearby, so I know the area. If you could just maybe take another shot at this, see if you can come up with something. We're not asking for much. Just help us a little bit,
So if I may talk to the plan for a moment, in terms of what's possible to change You know, my main concern for my client is by making the building less wide and losing that square footage, is it viable? And I know that that's not your issue, but that it is his, unfortunately. We could certainly, you know, if the ramp is an issue, it could wrap around the side. And in fact, a ramp would be allowed to be in that setback. I don't think the neighbors want to be looking at a ramp, nor do I think is it a good idea to put an entry on the side. I think that's a terrible idea. And it makes it closer, in essence, to the neighbors. So honestly, I don't think that's a good idea.
And I think they have a requirement for seating. You know, they can't reduce the waiting area. I mean, you know, there's 2 seats per examiner.
What if it got thicker and narrower? Like if the 4-bay open bay to the right in the waiting room went left and you went back.
Further
Yeah.
back.
You're gonna gain this, you're gonna name this, not the same square footage, does it lay out? I don't know, I don't know what you do. But if the square footage is the net, then maybe you could, you know, reconfigure some of those single room treatment rooms, push those back and have the floor out in front. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, I don't do what you do. But I also heard you say, every chair doesn't suit the same purpose. Every chair, you know, you might have 4 chairs in a room and you might use each chair for one different thing. So it doesn't mean there's going to be 4 asses in a chair at any given time. You know, so I mean, I also did hear that being said. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I think you can net some of this, because Gene, right, I mean, if I hear you correctly, if that building was pushed off of that property line to what I'm thinking is theirs, you kind of lose your issue, right?
That's right.
So, I mean, I think you net a big plus with Gene if you could take 5 feet off of that width and pull it back in the rear, and it gets you this, you know, does it get you the same thing? I don't know, but.
I mean, I hope to address the collective wish of the board and our neighbors. I mean, that's my ultimate goal. And if all else fails, I might have to entirely relocate the practice, and who knows what's going to come in there.
Right.
I mean, that's,
Careful what you wish for.
Yeah,
You know?
We still want.
I'll give you that one.
The ordinance is pretty clear about rear setbacks,
Yeah.
which is what we're trying to
You
respect.
can come back in and ask.
But you know what, though, I tell you what, you know, I'd be willing to bet you, even if you drop that distance in the back, you've got more room to the rear than you do to the side. So, what do you got, 15, 16 feet there?
15 is required.
Compared to the 7 you've got there. So, I mean, if you increase that to 15 on the side and drop that rear back to 7, I bet you'd get a lot less grief from this side of the table. Am I hearing it right, Gene? Yeah, you know.
So, Queen, you guys want to share? What do you guys think about some of these?
Well, I can't speak, the neighbors who are critical live right here, the Supers live right here, so moving this back wouldn't impact us, and moving it here would help us, but they might have something different to say if they had the chance to be here.
Okay.
Sorry.
So I can't speak to that, but I would like them to have the opportunity to speak to that. This is the first time that something like that has been discussed, but I will reiterate, Rose and I hold Dr. Park in great regard. We think this facility needs to be upgraded. We just feel this is too large of a scale, and we understand the variance goes with the property. So I believe everything he says about maintaining a modest practice in a larger area, but somebody else who comes in could operate a high-volume clinic in there.
So it was funny, because I didn't realize that the other 2 buildings were dentists as well. The one- Yeah, so when all 3 were humming, you probably had 6 to 8, well, you had at least 6, maybe 8 or 10 dentists working out of that little area.
Well, the history of that area of Broad Street was professional offices.
Yeah.
Law offices, doctor's offices.
Owner occupied.
Okay, yeah.
More information.
Yeah, I'd like you one more time to basically take a look at making some changes to that would make it more palatable to them and also us as well.
Yeah.
So I'm going to continue this for 2 weeks.
I just wanted to, because I think our meeting
They'll
was
be here,
understood.
they've been here for every meeting.
No, I know.
They'll be here in 2 weeks, and so will I.
No, the architect.
We just wanted to clear up perhaps a misunderstanding or something when we say, first of all, we believe in special needs and supporting and doing everything in our endeavor to do that. And it wasn't that we didn't want to see a special needs ramp. What we had asked is, One, that it fits more with the neighborhood. And two, I don't know how, so the driveway is used for letting people off because these, to try to go up on those, you see, they're all cracked, right? That's not on Dr. Parks or us, that's just, that's the city, yeah. And so you can't get up there. So the people that use the wheelchair ramp, they actually drive up and they go on to, where's the front of the house? Can I use
Just the
this
front of the
picture?
house right here.
Yeah, I'm gonna use this picture, I'm just gonna borrow this for a sec because I can't. So what we had asked is, since they get on here, you know, could they go and do that? But if they indeed put green space, that does help the look. Before, what was happening is you had a bike rack here, and we lost everything here, and that was complete loss of green space in it. So that we're fine, but our thing with the wheelchair ramp is not that we didn't want to see people, it was saying, hey, if they're getting on right here, and my husband being 30 years in construction and design, and we did the measurements, and yes, we're not an architect, but we looked and it could go here, and I believe last meeting you said it could, it's not. What you want to do, it would be difficult, but...
The trade-off is they don't have that side door for teens, that front door. So if you extend the ramp further down, I think that was the trade-off, was they have two different populations.
I can address why I felt
that would be great.
so strongly about it. So, and I did look at this originally. I've got several major concerns about the handicap ramp being, let's call it, justified to this corner instead of that corner. First of all, I don't believe it's a good idea to have car access and the bottom of a wheelchair ramp in the same proximity. I think that's a terrible idea. That's one. Secondly, in terms of how Dr. Park is going to be able to achieve this project, it's not hard to renovate a practice and still practice and pay his bills and all that. So we very carefully thought about how we have to maintain this entry during construction while this is done. And the way that the ramp on this end could be done as the last thing in the project while this was maintained is critically important for him operating. If the ramp was here and it went this direction, the entry's gone. And in terms of construction, when would that have to happen? During construction at some point, and it would be disruptive. That may not be a major issue from a design point of view, but it is major for how he would run his practice. I also personally have sort of a twitch that starts to happen when an old house like this, which has been here for a long, long time, and has had a front door in it for a long, long time, all of a sudden gets taken away and a ramp is put across the front of it. That doesn't feel right to me either. And if I were a historic preservationist, I wouldn't recommend someone doing that. So those are a few reasons that I feel very strongly about. Lastly, perhaps, is how we develop the plan and the flow of the space. It works really well. And when things work that well, sometimes you don't mess with it because you're lucky that it works. In this case, the ramp in that location works really well.
So I was just clarifying, I didn't want to be misrepresented that we didn't want to see people in wheelchairs. That was never, we never said that. We would never feel that way. So, yeah.
Chairman, if I may.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
In the interest of time, and so that I can take home some working pieces to use for next iteration of this. I think the two conflicting, so the opposing forces here is what's required for the ramp, which then dictates the width of the building, perhaps.
I don't think so. I think we just want, the ramp has nothing to do with what we're asking. I just think it's a large project.
Yeah.
And right, so we're trying to come up with a way where we can probably reduce the square footage.
Yeah, reduce the...
From the street level. From the street side.
From the street level.
Yeah, so looking at the building, see if we can...
Isn't that dictated by the length required for the handicap ramp?
That's something the architect's going to...
Well, the ramp could turn the corner, but I mean, I'm sure there's going to be another issue coming from this side of the table over here too. So I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to get down to the paint color soon, so I mean...
I hope not.
If our neighbors are okay with the ramp turning the corner and having the entry here, or even to be very honest, the most flexibility that I would have is if the ramp started here, went this way, and then back, then we have a lot of flexibility. But I don't think
I think that we should just do this in front of our other neighbors, because I feel like you don't want to misrepresent their voice.
They should also be here too.
Well,
If it wasn't for Attorney Markopoulos telling us,
That's not our issue.
Right, I'm gonna have a call with him tomorrow, let him
That's
know.
not best between you and him, to be honest, so.
Well, we did continue it. So what, is there a motion to continue? So Mr. Callender's made a motion to continue.
I'll second it.
Seconded. We're going to continue to February 18th? Yes. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Come back one more shot at this. Thank you, everybody. So the last case tonight is, and I hope you're here for this case, is 47 Broad Street, case 9923. Petitioner Freddie Rodriguez and Ronaldo Figueroa by their attorney David Lesperance to permit the continued use of a pre-existing non-conforming residence as a three-family dwelling in the R4 apartment house district on a lot with less than the required frontage, front setback, and right side with the required parking of 5 spaces. So the hearing is now open for those in favor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. David Lesperance, appearing for Mr. Rodriguez and his wife, who are present here. We have an architect here as well that could answer any questions about this. Essentially, the material change in this was the parking situation. We've gone from a design of 3 parking spaces to 5 parking spaces. The pictures that we submitted to Mary in the original package, I can never make good copies on our copy machine in case somebody doesn't have a copy of the application. I try to keep the papers to a minimum. The architect is here with his assistant, Mr. Rodriguez. Please step up there. Mr. Rodriguez purchased this home in the last year.
Yeah, June 26th.
And he plans on making it his home with his family. He's brought some neighbors with him that are not opposed, they're in favor. That young man's one of them. City Councilor Colucci submitted a letter. You can see on the top of what I gave you. He's in favor of the project, or not opposed to it. It really doesn't change anything that's there. Contrasting to the last case, there were no material changes at all to the building itself or the backyard, other than cleaning the backyard up. There'll be some nice green space there, and there'll be parking, adequate parking requirement is 1.5 per unit, and we certainly meet that. So we would ask for approval to go forward on this, and would certainly answer any questions of the board.
Does anyone have any questions? No, at this point? So I have some, not questions, just a little history. We went through this last spring.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was basically, it was an estate that was selling the property at the time. And we had gotten an opinion from ISD that at one time, I guess there was some sort of professional use, here we go again, in 2 apartments. But then it ended up being 3 apartments. And that was I'll be honest with you, that was a tough situation. But, you know, we've been consistent on the parking issue.
Yes.
And rightfully so, because here we are 10 years, 8 years later, and we're still dealing with properties in the same area around parking. But the thing that's changed for me this time is that, so once we denied the petitioner, the estate sale, we denied them. They then put the house on the market shortly thereafter and sold it. And sold it what I would consider a fair price for a 2-family, $500,000. And although we had issues with the Patriot property prior to this year, they actually listed it as a three-family.
Yes, they did.
And now they list it as a
Consistent.
two.
Yeah, just, that was changed.
Right,
I could, Mr.
based-
Chairman,
based-
within the past couple of weeks, it was changed.
That
I
was
checked it
changed
for-
because of the actions of this board. And now it's also, the assessment is now down to a two-family, so taxes are gonna go down on it. So this basically was bought as a two-family, so, at one time it was absolutely used as an illegal three. And I'll tell you, it was a tough vote at that time because where they were the petitioners and they had been in their property for so long or whatever, but.
They had.
But at this point, it got rectified. We actually rectified the situation. And now it's reclassified, it's classified properly as a two-family. And it's now assessed as a two-family. Where before they were arguing, well, it's been assessed as a three. We've been paying taxes on a three, although we always say, you may be paying taxes on a three, but you've had three incomes coming in as well. So that certainly has made it worth your while. But the situation is, it's now illegal too. We clarified that not that long, less than a year ago. I was surprised to see it come back because normally they have to wait 2 years.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we got, if I could, we got several different opinions, and the opinion on the parking was a material change that meets that 2-year criteria. And also, it has been, the assessor's records, the last time you folks were familiar with this, it was assessed as a three-family in use. He's not trying to hide anything.
No,
As a matter of fact,
no.
what did the real estate broker tell you when you bought it?
That is a three-family.
No,
the real estate is 6,000 square foot or bigger. You know, more than the average three-family around the town. I have some fresh pictures that I took this morning.
But clearly, the estate, you bought this off the estate, clearly I hope they didn't mischaracterize this, because
when you bought it, right, I think it was right after we already said it was a two-family, so we asked for the records to be rectified, and you went in and bought the house as a three-family, but right before that, we classified it as two-family.
Okay, but I think the guy wanted to change it to a three-family because he wants to sell it for higher.
Exactly,
But
and we said no.
Yeah, but I'm trying to keep it and make it my resident with my family.
Well, right now it's already back, it's back to two.
But
So you're asking not to continue.
To continue use as a three.
Not to continue, but to
Change.
change.
Okay.
Not to continue, because it's not a three.
I agree with you. I agree
You want
with
us to
you.
change, that's what you should be
The
asking.
release sought should have been
Yes.
create a three-family.
Yeah.
Would the board allow me to reapply using that language? We'd have to re-advertise it as well to do that correctly. I understand that
I
now.
have my architect here, they could fill you in and
Well, we're not even looking at the design right now, we just look at the facts.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yes,
So,
I do.
we're not even looking at the design right now, I think we'll save you some time.
The reason I went with, what I went with was, I believe that the material change was the parking. That was a huge issue, and it is an issue on Broad Street for people that live there, and it is mixed use and what have you. This wouldn't change anything. If the board would be kind enough to allow me to amend or change the petition, it would be appreciated. I suppose we'd have to withdraw this one without prejudice and reapply.
I don't know let's see. Yeah, to me, it's not gonna make a difference, but, except to you. Because I'll be honest with you, based upon the price, which I think is fair, I don't even know what the hardship is. I don't even know if there's a legitimate hardship on this case at this point. Because, I mean, we've had some where they paid for a three-family.
Yeah.
You got a good deal, you got a good house.
It's not like you were tricked as a three, but
but the situation, I ended up buying it with a co-signer because the bank wouldn't qualify they only give me credit for one unit, my resident, plus my resident.
Yeah.
In order for me now to get my family member out of the loan, I have to refinance it, and the property doesn't generate enough income where I could buy it. I'm only a truck driver, and doesn't generate enough, but if I have 2 units plus the one owner occupied for myself, then I can refinance a family member out of the loan and stay.
The problem with what happens with these,
No, please.
the problem what happens with these, we look down on these changes because, as you can see, this has already come in front of the
Many
board in the
times.
past decade, how many
We have
times?
10 waiting
right?
on board, ready to
Right,
go.
So see what happens. All the best intentions are stated, and I believe you're sincere and have all the best intentions, but who's to say what's gonna happen, right? In 3 years, house isn't his anymore, he can't keep it, whatever the case may be. Now it's a 3-family house. Might not be an owner occupied, it might be a friggin', it might be, you know, whatever it turns into.
Absentee,
But
I
this is
understand
where,
that.
this is where these are tough, because as tough as they are, you know, the family, I understand the situation he's in, but it's very hard to get one of these through.
What?
It was, this case was just denied right before you bought it, for exactly the same reason.
And that's why they sold it.
Yeah.
Because it was denied.
Yeah, once we denied it, he sold it.
Right.
Yeah, but it's a hardship for me and not being able to live on a unit and rent the other unit for me to.
That's not a hardship.
That's the criteria.
That's not that kind of hardship.
Soil, there's other things that create hardships.
But we're looking to stay and keep the property. That's our intention.
But if it's a one family, I'm not sure, but if it's a one family, you guys should just go ahead and occupy the space.
I just don't want to further alone have, get in trouble by
Zoning enforcement
occupying
troubles.
an apartment that is not, by the city recognized as a 2, as a 3.
Yeah, but, I'm not gonna speak for SD here, but if you guys occupy the first floor and the second floor, the same family, then, that's just, it is what it is. Or if you guys occupy the second floor and the third floor as one family, and you guys not getting income from it, so it's still a 2-family.
That's, you're in the gray now.
Yeah, it's a gray area.
Right.
Take a stove
There's
out.
a kitchen, you take the
Take the
stove
kitchen
out,
out,
now
right.
it's a kitchen.
You might have to be small.
But
You know,
you
there's
can't
4
rent
meters,
it.
there's 4 meters on the side of the building,
we
you
don't
know?
want you to rent as a 3, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think in this particular case, if I can make a side argument, there is absolutely going to be no changes whatsoever aesthetically when you drive down the street.
Then I would ask you this, why stand here and say anything? If it's gonna be all in the inner family, if it's all, you know.
Because it's true, there's going to be no
But
material
if that's the
changes.
reality of it, then why does it need to be made a 3-family in the eyes of the city?
It's already sitting there as a 3-family, of course it.
But it isn't, he bought it as a 2, and he knew what he was buying when he bought it. That's the point. The point is he knew what he was buying when he bought it. He was buying a 2-family, he wasn't buying a 3. Doesn't matter what's going on inside the building when he buys it. It's what the assessor calls it. And it was listed as a 2, we bought it at a 2, and he paid 2-family house pricing to buy it. So at that point in time, to turn it into a 3, if you're telling me that the hardship is money, then
He said that.
it's a financial thing. So this board, the financial part of it we don't recognize
I
that.
understand, but the hardship is the inconvenience that.
Again, you knew, you should have thought about that before you
No, because
did.
originally what they listed to me, they listed as a 3.
But you knew when you bought it, it wasn't.
Well, no, when I was signing the paper at the closing table, because they came to the city 6 different times and they got the permit that you get with the permit that you got when you the legal usage. They were always been using it as a 3. 6 different times the inspector went in there. Even the inspector, the head of the inspector came into the house and he told me he cannot believe that the city has a label as a 2 because it's more than enough space.
So you're saying that it was inspected you have 3 inspections for the past couple of years for 3 units?
No, I checked the record and I can show you the record where when you first move in, the city has to inspect it.
But that means you're saying there was 3 inspections that happened for the first floor, second floor,
And the third floor. Every floor has at least 3 or 4 different inspections. Because, everything is even on the picture, you see the stairs, 2 ways of egress.
plenty of parking. There's no
4
parking.
meters.
4 meters instead of 3 meters. He has 4 meters. 3 different gas. Everything separated. Everything.
You know, it's sprinklered, the house is sprinkled too, right?
No, it doesn't have to.
Doesn't have to be. How many bedrooms on each floor?
3 bedroom.
3 bedrooms each floor?
Yeah.
So there's 9 bedrooms in the house?
No, there's 2 bedroom plus living room, dining room.
Two on each floor?
How many bedrooms?
Oh, two in each floor, yeah.
2 on each floor?
Well, if you did all this checking into everything, why did you buy something that you can't afford? Why did you buy something that was already denied less than a year?
I didn't know it was denied. I bought the house because of the area. The only reason why I bought the property because it's right next to my mother, it's right next to my cousin's house, and it's right next to my uncle's house. And when I go to work, I want to make sure my babies and my kids stay with a family member. That's the only reason why I choose that specific property.
You got a good house, I think, at a fair price.
But does that really play into the decision?
Yeah.
Is it gonna be the board's continued position not to allow 3
And
families?
it has been. Look back, look at the history.
No, I understand that, but what
And
about
we-
the housing crunch we
What
talk
can I
about?
do to
Hold on a second. What about the housing crunch too? He has a family that needs,
I'm not gonna jam 20 people in a house because of the housing crunch. I mean, that would be,
No one's gonna
that would
jam
be
20
lunacy.
people.
But you just said to me, what about the
What
housing?
about the housing
I should
crunch?
overpopulate a neighborhood because there's a housing crunch? That doesn't make any sense.
No, you know,
That's,
Yeah,
I mean, you know.
like I said, this would be very tough to change because we held the line with the people that owned it for years and years.
And we
years.
consistently do with these.
I remember the guy telling me that he got 3 boats. That he only needed 1 boat to be a legal 3.
Yeah, 1 more.
Yeah, he only
You
needed
only needed 1 more.
Exactly. So if 3 people already agree, so I'm here with my family hoping to change just only one person.
But again, the circumstances are totally different now. You bought it, there's no hardship, you bought it clearly at a good price for a 2-family, and the assessment's gonna end up probably going down here. But it's now classified as a 2-family.
Yeah, but
This is classified as a 2-family.
I wouldn't mind if to pay more taxes and have the convenience to be able to.
Mr.
I
Chairman,
can't
Excuse
vote.
me, wait a minute, excuse me. Go ahead.
I can't vote yes for this, for something I denied less than a year ago, and nothing has changed. That's my bottom line.
Everything changes.
Nothing has changed.
It's still the same use.
The same piece of property, it's still a 2-family, it was an illegal 3 before, and I just,
okay, could I just have a moment with my client, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I think he wants to say something.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Please give your name and address.
John Tomas, architect for the project at 47 Glenwood Street in Lynn.
Yep.
Now, Chairman, Mr. Cole, to address the price that you keep on mentioning, I believe that the owner, the client here, was sort of confused about the 2 to 3 family situation. Basically, it was a total gut of the interior and redid all of the electrical, the plumbing, and that was reflecting on the purchase price that he had at $500,000 for either a 2 or for a 3 family, regardless. He put a lot of work and money into it. So
Did you get permits for to redo three units?
No, we only got permit to, we haven't get to that process yet. We pulled the permit for a 2 because it's a 2. The D says it's a 2.
And when you did the work that you're speaking about, you did it as a 2 or as a 3?
Oh, it's a 2.
So what are we talking about then?
I think the fact that the purchase price is not reflected on the deal that the house was.
correct, needed work, and that's why the purchase price was low. I was just speaking on the purchase price itself.
Okay.
Because the house was, as previously explained, everything was already separated, the gas and the electric, for 3 units, including 1 for the house, so 4 meters. And that's where I think the confusion was made, between here and him doing his research between the 2 and the 3 and the back and forth. I can't speak on what was, talked about, previously with the previous owner. I can only shed light to the price that Mr. Cole was speaking about.
I can tell you if it was a licensed 3, it would have gone for a lot more than $500,000. I can just tell, I'll tell you that.
No one's gonna disagree with that. Breeze are going for big money everywhere.
Anyone else, any other questions then before we open up to anybody else?
No, I think I'm...
Anyone else want to speak in favor? Anyone else want to speak in favor? Anyone else will close it for those in favor, open it for those in opposition?
Mr. Chairman, could I
will give
may
you,
withdraw?
absolutely, when I complete the hearing, we'll give
Hold on
yeah,
one second.
We will.
Please.
Anyone else, anyone want to speak in opposition? Anyone speak in opposition? Hearing none, we'll close the hearing. For those in opposition, we'll close the hearing.
Just one moment.
Let's go right ahead.
Mr. Chairman, we just want to make it clear, we're not trying to slip a fast one past the zoning board.
No, I don't get that at all.
Okay,
He's been
thank
very
you.
upfront and forward. Did you
Yes.
explain the whole situation?
We'd ask that we be allowed to withdraw our petition. We'll regroup and figure something out to help this family out.
I think that's
And
fair.
ask that.
I would be happy if you were living in it as a 3-family, I'll tell you now.
Pardon me?
I wouldn't be happy if it continued being used as a 3-family.
But she's not gonna check either.
Well, it's his family.
So is there a motion?
Motion to withdraw, actually, want to reconsider without prejudice, right?
No,
Yes,
withdraw.
Withdraw without prejudice.
Withdraw without prejudice.
I can second it. You want this case? No.
Sure. Who's on, you're not on the
No,
case.
I'm not there.
Terry's gonna second that motion. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Crowitz? Agree. To withdraw without prejudice? Agree.
Thank you.
Mr. Wu, to withdraw without prejudice? Mr. Jussono, to withdraw?
Yes.
Mrs. Curley, to withdraw without prejudice?
They'd have to come back in.
Right, they can't do anything without coming back, so. It just gives them the ability to go back and sharpen a knife or whatever.
But I'm gonna check on it and make sure it's not being used as a 3-family if I agree to this. I'll tell you now. Because that would be sneaky. Up till now, you
Ms.
right
Curley,
up to
please, please. This is a reputable young
I
man
just
here.
said,
He's not gonna do that.
excuse me,
He's not gonna do
I
that.
just said, up to now, he's been very forthwith
Yes.
and very nice.
I agree.
In fairness, I do want to write the letter that was cited, although you all have it. There was a letter of support from Richard Colucci, the councilor from Ward 4. He sent a letter I'm writing in support of the above-mentioned petition to Whittaker. But again, he says continued use of a pre-existing non-conforming residence as a 3-family. All right, so the motion is made and seconded. Did we have?
Mrs. Curley,
To
to withdraw without prejudice?
Yes.
Mr.
Thank you,
Cole?
Mr. Curley.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Colton.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?